Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I would love to share with you today's topic, but before we do that, we will begin with our routine, and our routine is the heart focused breathing technique. So let us sit back, relax, and let me take you through this wonderful journey. So we begin by placing our awareness in the area of the heart. And then just take slow, deep breaths. Visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. And just these two steps. Slow, deep breaths. And just visualize these breaths flowing in and out of your heart. Just breathe a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. Slow, deep breaths. The first organ that actually develops in the fetus is the heart. There's a reason for that. The heart is there to begin everything about you. Studies have shown that humans feel first before they rationalize what they're feeling. Sometimes we can't even understand what we're feeling. But every human being feels first. It's no wonder, because the heart was the first organ to be developed in the fetus. So just place your awareness in the area of the heart. It has been there since you were born. It's the first organ. It will be the last organ to stop working when you transition into a better place, into the next adventure. So honor the heart by placing your awareness in the area of the heart. Take slow, deep breaths. Visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. And give your heart a hug. Beautiful. Continue to maintain that awareness in the area of the heart, taking slow, deep breaths, gentle breaths. Wonderful. Thank you so much for spending this little time with me doing our first breathing technique. Let us now begin to explore the I didn't know that moment. This topic that you saw this morning is want to change your circumstances, you need to change this one thing first. Many of us feel that how many of us have actually had a situation where we say, as soon as my finances get better, I will be happier. Or as soon as I can get away from this week, which is going to be a heavy week, things will lighten up for me next week, and I can actually go and do those things that I've always wanted to do. If only I didn't have to work 12 hours a day, I could spend more time with the family. And we tend to be locked into this circumstance and cycle. Well, there's an interesting exploration that I want you to kind of try out this week. You see, the idea here is, before you want to change your circumstance, you need to follow these three steps in order to change your circumstance. If your circumstance creates an unwanted emotion, so you're not feeling good about working the long hours, say for example, because you want to spend some time with the family and it's coming in the way. So it's something outside of you that's causing you not to feel in a certain way. First, we need to do is acknowledge the emotion and say, yes, I do feel guilty about not spending time with the family. Or I feel sad that I'm not able to get away to France because I've got finance issues. Acknowledge the emotions. And then ask yourself, what belief do you have about this circumstance? Because it's always a belief that causes you to create that emotion that's created out of a belief. For example, you may have a belief that I have to work hard in order to make money, and or I have to have money before I can go to France. It's not necessary for you to have money before you can go to France. There are many different ways to do that, for example. So there's a belief system you have about this circumstance, and that belief system is narrowing you down and locking you into that circumstance. So ask yourself, first of all, acknowledge the emotion. Ask yourself then, what belief do I have about this emotion, this circumstance? Why do I feel this way? Even if it is a trigger point with somebody in your life, that person creates a feeling in you, an unwanted feeling in you, just because they are around you. And ask yourself, why? What belief system do I have? And that belief system around that person could be as simple as, that person is going to say something that's going to embarrass me and my children, or embarrass me and my spouse. And it's not happened yet, but it's that feeling that you have that person will say something. So I have a belief system around that. Then the last item is, what belief would create the emotion that you want? So what belief would you have to have about the circumstance? So for example, in the earlier case we had, I have to work hard in order to make money. That's my belief. What if I just believed or said to myself, all right, I don't have to work hard to make the money I want, and I don't have to work long hours to make the money I want. I can spend time with my family. What if you shifted that belief? What would happen? Just let it sit in your body. So if you have a circumstance that you are experiencing now, then ask yourself, what belief do I have about this circumstance? And then what belief would create the emotion that I want? And the important aspect of this is, when you change your belief, you actually change the feeling. Remember, we started out with, I have a feeling about this circumstance. But then there's a belief around that feeling. But if I change the belief, I can actually change my feeling about that circumstance. So if I change my belief in saying, this person's not going to say something really insulting to me, if I just change that belief saying that person's not going to do that, my feeling about that circumstance changes. My thoughts about that changes, because we feel first before we think. So as soon as we change our feeling, our thoughts get changed completely. And when we change our thoughts, we actually change our circumstance. And that is indeed the process to follow when we want to change our circumstance. So please practice this week on changing your circumstances through changing your beliefs. And all you have to do is ask yourself, what belief system do I have to have in order to change this emotion of mine? And I can then change my thoughts about that circumstance. All right? So let us step into our next phase of our breathing technique of your Monday morning espresso shot. Let us place our awareness in the area of our heart. Take slow, deep breaths. Visualize these flowing in and out of our hearts. Breathing a little slower, little gentler than you normally would. And now experience a regenerative emotion. Just something that allows you to feel gratitude, love, appreciation, peace. One of the most powerful changes in belief that I've actually experienced myself when I've asked myself, when somebody is doing something or saying something that is not making you feel well, or is giving you unwanted emotions, I should say. One thing I've done is I've actually said to myself, there's an inner child in that person that's crying. And what do you do with children when they're crying? You go and hug them. That changed my belief. Rather than saying that person is pure evil, I said, there's a child inside that person that wants to cry out because they're hurt. And then in my mind and my heart, I go and give them a hug. That is an example of changing your belief, which changes your feeling, which changes your thoughts, which changes your circumstance. So let us experience a positive feeling as we're taking these slow, deep breaths, and see if we can practice now to change our beliefs about an unwanted circumstance. And let us begin to create a new circumstance. Life is meant to be joyous. Life is meant to be easy. That is my belief. I have changed that belief. You can too. Because the other belief did not serve me. So take slow, deep breaths. Visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. And now, experience a regenerative emotion of appreciation, a feeling of peace, feeling of love. And as you take these slow, deep breaths, visualize them flowing in and out of your heart. You are giving your heart a huge hug. And now ask your heart to remind you of these 3 steps when you have unwanted feelings caused by a circumstance. Ask your body to remind you to ask yourself this question: what belief do I have that's causing this feeling in me about this circumstance? And then ask yourself, how do I want to change the belief? What belief do I need to have in order for me to change the emotion that I feel? And then embody that belief. Make it a part of your belief system. And when you change the emotion, you change your thoughts, you change your circumstance. And in a way, it doesn't matter if your belief system lines up with what the reality is of the circumstance or not. You've just shifted your own self. And when you shift your own self, and when you speak with that energy, the person that was the aggressor will actually tone down, because they will receive the love and the energy from you that perhaps they needed in order for them to actually live the belief that you have created. So you can change the circumstances by changing your belief. You can create reality. You can change others. You can shift others by just shifting from within, by just igniting from inside out. That is the power you were born with, and it is all done by your heart. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful sharing this morning. And I'm going to go to the chat area to see if we have any comments. And if you have any questions, this is the time to type them in. Happy to share with you my thoughts about your questions. So good afternoon from Sue. Good afternoon from the UK. Thank you for joining us today, Sue. And good morning from Hawaii. Very, very early in the morning for you from Hawaii. Thank you so much. And we have Natalie from Germany. Thank you so much for joining us, Natalie. Sue, you have a statement, or here's a question. Shamir, you mentioned that feeling comes before thought. Is this the usual way around, as I always believe the thought came first? That's a good question. A feeling actually is the first thing that your body processes. So feeling actually creates the reasoning in your frontal cortex. So when you feel something, your frontal cortex is that rationalizing, the executive functioning allows you to actually process that feeling. And when you have a feeling, the thought is about that feeling. So really when we're talking about thinking about it, that creates a thought. So if you're feeling sad, the thought is around that sadness. And so if you change the belief system, the thought is around perhaps joy. A thought is around compassion. And when you feel that, when you create the compassion, there you go, you create the circumstances. Now the question is, you believe the thought came first. Now this is one of those things where, did the thought create the reality? And if it did, then the reality then informed the thought. So here's something that was explained to us in one of the workshops I went to, is when you have a thought about a circumstance, that circumstance, the way you look at that circumstance can either reinforce that thought and make a deeper groove in your neural pathways. That means you almost look like your thought is creating the output of the reality. So it is possible that your thought will, because from if it's a subconscious thought, an unconscious thought, it is actually creating your reality. So in that instance, your thought came first, because your feeling is set aside because you have already created this pathway that says, when I feel this way, my thought is one, and then that creates a reality. What we're talking about in this particular session is how you can change your thought from changing your belief system, which changes your feeling and rewires the neural pathways on your thought. So this is quite an interesting, and I know that it's difficult to understand and experience unless you've experienced it. But the idea here is your thought will actually reinforce your reality. So yes, in a way, your thought is the one that's always reinforcing your reality. It is when we talk about changing your reality that we must change our thoughts. And the only way to change your thoughts, in the way that I'm aware of anyways, is to first change your belief system. So we're talking about actually using your thoughts to create reality, but the process of doing that is to first change your belief system, which changes your feeling, which then informs your thought, and then you can change your thoughts about a situation, and then you can change the reality. So a thought is in the path. Perhaps it's the last step in creating your outcome or reality, but it's not the only thing that does that. So if you want to look at it this way from Sue, your thought is the last thing that will change the reality. It's the last kind of item in the series of items that will change that, but it's not the only sole thing that does that. I hope that helps. Michelle, I should only believe that what will bring me a happy mood and practice it moment by moment. Actually, yes. I would say I would first ask the belief system. I would ask, why am I feeling sad? I'm feeling sad. My thoughts are now reinforced and creating that sad situation because I'm looking at things from a sad situation. Interestingly enough, yesterday I was watching a show, and in this show there was a situation where a pregnant woman and her friend was saying that because they didn't have many friends and they were actually in jail. You might have seen this episode actually of Orange is the New Black. They were in jail cell, and they had no friends. They had nothing, and this woman was pregnant, and her cellmate said, "Look, I have a family," and she opened up a panel and it was a family of rats. Now people go, squirmy, squirmy, squirmy. But what happened was, this particular pregnant woman, because she wanted to learn more about the family because she was pregnant, and the fact that her friend told her about how this one particular pregnant rat actually had children, this individual who was pregnant started changing her belief system, saying these rats are family, they have love, they look after each other. As soon as she changed her belief, she was petting the rats. Now these are in jail cells. You never know what kind of diseases they bear. But she didn't even think about that. She just felt love for the nature. And later on in the segment, it was a Halloween kind of day, and they usually pull pranks on each other. So some of the prisoners actually caught some rats and released them on the floor. When they did that, everybody else started screaming. But this pregnant woman said, "Oh my God, look at those pretty rats. Look at this wonderful family." That is the epitome of changing your belief systems and sharing compassion for nature. So if your belief system is rats are bad, rats are really bad for you, and they kind of are disease born. But when you shift that circumstance, all of a sudden you're doing nothing but feeling amazing in your heart. Now, I'm not suggesting you guys go do that with other feral creatures, but I'm just saying this is an example of how you can shift your belief. It is your belief that you shift about that circumstance that will create that joy in you, and you will not run scared. You will just feel that compassion.